LGBTQ timeline, 1959 to 1964. Cops, Queers, and Donuts, the Donut Uprising. 10 years before the Stonewall Rebellion, John Francis Retchie participated in and chronicled the following happenings in his 1963 novel, City of Night. In May 1959, two cops targeted the popular late-night hangout place for LGBTQ individuals, Cooper Donut. It was common practice for the police at that time to harass the transgender, queers, hustlers, drag queens, and every social deviant who frequented the popular gay bars and late-night hangouts in Los Angeles. Two cops entered the donut shop that night to check IDs and picked up two hustlers, two queens, and a young man just cruising. As the cops packed the back of the squad car, one of the men objected, due to the car being illegally crowded. As they tried to force him in, the others scattered out of the car. The patrons, including Recchi, poured out of the donut shop, fed up with the police harassment, and on this night they fought back, hurling donuts, coffee cups, and trash at the police. The police reportedly fled into their car, calling for backup. Disobedience filled the street, with people generally wreaking havoc. The police returned with backup, and a number of rioters were beaten and arrested. The Cooper Donut Uprising was the first spark that ignited future demonstrations and riots that led to Compton's cafeteria riot, the Black Cat Riot in Silver Lake, and the Stonewall Rebellion. Not just shunned by straight society, transgender people were often further marginalized by the larger gay community as well, in part because their higher profile attracted unwanted police attention. To protect and serve, LAPD Police Chief William H. Parker, known as Wild Bill Parker by the queer community, had made arresting criminals guilty of sex perversion his department's #1 priority. Transgender people made obvious targets and were imprisoned in large numbers for the crime of masquerading, despite the fact that courts had declared such behavior not criminal in 1950, at least for women. On the night of the riot, as they did on many nights, LAPD officers entered the donut shop and demanded to see the patrons' IDs. If the sex on their ID did not match their gender, it was department policy to throw them in jail, usually a wing of the Lincoln Heights jail nicknamed the Fruit Tank. I've chosen to highlight the Cooper Donut riot in this presentation. However, I have noted several of the events in the LGBTQ timeline for this period of time from 1959 to 1964 here, starting with the first known homosexual uprising at Cooper Donuts in 1959. In 1960, the first National Lesbian Conference, and two corporals, female corporals in the Air Force Reserve, became the first two people to successfully challenge their discharges from the U.S. military for being gay. In 1961, The Rejected was the first documentary on homosexuality. Hollywood studios altered the production code to allow the depiction of gay men and lesbians again. And Frank Kameny filed gay rights appeals, the first gay rights appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court, and co-founded the Washington Mattachine Society with Jack. In 1962, Illinois became the first state to remove sodomy laws from the criminal code. And in 1963, first gay rights demonstration at Whitehall Induction Center, which was a military induction. The formation of the East Coast Homophile Organization, ECHO, in 1964. The founding of the Society for Individual Rights, SIR, and publication of Vector magazine, which was a liberationist homophile organization. The first openly gay person to appear on national TV was Randy Wicker in 1964, and the first photograph of lesbians on the cover of Lesbian magazine, The Ladder, September of 19. Here are several examples that were included in the Stonewall 45, indicating how homosexuals and others in the LGBTQ community were not treated fairly. And bars were generally targeted because they catered to that population. As queer San Franciscans began to reap the hard-earned benefits of the past 2 decades of organizing, the United States began to experience a profound social upheaval. The Society for Individual Rights was formed in September 1964. SIR represented a new breed of homophile organization, one which was assertive and self-confident. Where earlier political bodies such as the Mattachine Society and Daughters of Bilitis had been assimilationists out of necessity, SIR was a liberationist out of righteousness. It was also more democratic and inclusive, and this new style would become a model for gay political organizations to follow. The homophile movement description is self-descriptive term, love of same, preferred over the clinical sex-focused term homosexual. In this article, in the early 1960s, New York City commonly arrested 1,000 to 1,200 men each year for homosexual solicitation, using plainclothes officers to entrap men by posing as homosexuals and soliciting them for sex. The United States is a heteropatriarchal society. Heteropatriarchy, the combination of male patriarchal and heterosexual dominance, essentially describing the severe sex and gender bias prevalent among the elite ruling class of the nation. The hegemonic masculinity and gender violence strategies are in place to maintain heteropatriarchy. Homophobic violence executes or enforces the political, social, and ideological institution of heterosexism. It punishes non-heterosexual practice, and it aims to prevent future challenges to heteronormativity by employing the threat of violence to attach fear and stigma to non-heterosexual intimacy and desire. The nation was changing post-World War II and entering the Cold War, and as the U.S. experienced phenomenal economic growth, consolidating its position as a superpower, these are some of the historical events in context of 1959 to 1964. It included civil rights movement, disputes with other countries, space exploration, Martin Luther King demonstrations on Washington, D.C. for jobs and freedom, and Beatlemania. This was an important period of time, and the spark of the Cooper Donut riots was one of the first during this period of time that launched other demonstrations leading to Stonewall.